In the previous episode of the Woodland Life series, we worked on water collection at the cabin. Dad installed a rain gutter and water butt to collect the rainwater. We can then use this to put out any campfires we have, as well as create watering holes for animals to drink from during the drier months. In this episode, we look at getting off-grid power to the shelter, and for this, I would like to thank EcoFlow for sponsoring the episode and providing us with one of their Powerkits, a modular compact power system which is designed for small cabins, tiny homes and RVs. These Powerkits are designed to break down barriers to entry when looking to install off-grid power to your shelter. They feature a simple, user-friendly plug-and-play installation, and setup is easy and efficient, which is good because I know very little about electrical installation. You might be asking why I need power at all in the shelter, and I have a number of reasons for you. The first is that here in the UK, it gets dark at 4 PM in the winter months, which means if I am doing any woodland projects or wood carving work, I don't want to just stop working at 4 PM, and so the power kit will allow me to have some lighting in the cabin and allow me to continue to work inside when it is wet and raining. Before installing the power kit, we needed to finish the interior of the cabin. The first job was to put insulation between the studs. As we have had such a dry summer, the ash boards that we used for the cladding have shrunk, and this has left some areas to have small gaps where the wind can get in. And so by insulating in between the studs, we are reducing the cold drafts that will come through. I decided to use rigid foam core with a reflective coating, as this will help reduce the amount of moisture which gets through the walls, and will also trap the heat more efficiently. This in turn will help to stop any tools from rusting due to moist air getting through. It's an easy process, but making all the measurements and cuts is time consuming. It wasn't long before the weather turned, and so I rigged up a tarp out the front, and Dad joined me for the day to finish off the interior of the cabin. With the insulation finished, all we needed to do now was board up over the top of it. This gives me something to hang tools against, as well as adding an extra layer of insulation to keep it warm inside. It also gives me a solid platform to install the power kit to. I used 11mm OSB board for this. I could have used plywood, but the price of plywood at the moment is insane, so it made sense to go for a cheaper yet still effective option. EcoFlow sent me 3 2kWh batteries, giving me a total power system of 6 kWh. Easily enough power for what I need. These are lithium phosphate batteries, which are more efficient than lithium ion batteries. They have a longer lifespan, they're lighter, and they are much safer. These are also self-heating batteries, and so they can still work safely in temperatures as low as -20 degrees Celsius, which will never happen here in the south of the UK. They have useful carrying handles on the sides, but the bit that I like the most is the way that they can stack on top of each other to save space inside the cabin. The next step was to attach the batteries to the power unit. EcoFlow have a YouTube channel with really simple guides to installing each component of the power kit. But as everything has been made more user-friendly, it makes the installation process so much easier. They have combined all the essential 48-volt components into one plug-and-play power box, with much fewer wires and modules to have to deal with. These are just the brackets to mount the battery against the wall and secure it against the wall, so that if I knock them or bump them, they're not going to just topple over each other. They'll be actually screwed to the wall itself. Next was the AC-DC Smart Distribution Panel. This contains 12 fused DC positions and 6 AC positions, so that I can add multiple different electrical appliances to the interior of the cabin. However, I only really need some lighting and a camera setup, but it's good to know I can add to it down the line. The mounting brackets are dead easy to install, and the fixings are clearly labelled. Once it was mounted, I just needed to connect the AC and DC cables to the power unit. It's all very straightforward. As I'm doing this, there's an L there, and there's an L here for the live wire. The brown wire in the UK is live. It's just so simply laid out. L match with the L, N for neutral, the blue, there's an N underneath there, and then the earth in the UK is green and yellow, and that's the earth symbol. So it really is quite straightforward. Except when you drop the screws. It's nice because you've still got this panel here, so you can see when things have tripped or when fuses have gone. It's got this frosted kind of cover. Hopefully there's no errors. We will see. Here we go. So obviously there's no power output really coming out. I think the batteries may be self-heating, so they probably do draw a little bit of power, certainly during the colder temperatures. But other than that, I've got no devices plugged in, so I'm not drawing any power. And as for input, well, there's no need for the input at the moment, but the solar panels obviously aren't plugged in. So it's got an alternator, solar option, solar 2, and AC input if I wanted to AC charge it. So the output power comes from this plug here. This is one AC outlet plug, which I can just plug in and use straight away. Tools, mainly my power tool battery charger would plug into here. But any AC device that I need, pretty much, it's not going to draw too much power, will come out of that. It says on my system, it's got the overall percentage of my system, which is 30%. And apparently 30%, according to this, is 99 days, 23 hours of power at the current temperature, the way everything's set up. So that's with 3 batteries at 30%, 99 days. Now you're probably thinking, why have I got 3 2 kilowatt hour batteries? So that's 2, 4, 6 kilowatt hours overall, which is quite overkill for something like this. The reason being is this shelter, cabin, whatever, is quite deep in the woods. There's a field next to me, but there's big oak trees just out to the front here. There's hazel, mature hazel all around, and there's some crabapple as well. And all these leaves are covering the cabin a lot at the moment, which obviously means there's not too much sunlight. Even though I've got a big surface area up there, there's not too much sunlight hitting the top of the cabin. As a result of that, if I just had the one battery, It's then going to drain over time, winter months when I'm using it, and to try and get that recharged, it might take a while because it's England and we don't get tons of sun all the time. Even though we had a cracking summer, our winters can be quite cloudy. So for me, it was important to have that extra battery capacity so I could fall back on it should the sunlight not be out too much. I know I've got 3 batteries to, 2 other backup batteries to cover the power. So I can come in, I can turn the lights on in the winter and, charge tools and things like that. So, I'm doing a lot of woodland management here. Not just on camera, but off camera as well. I'm always using battery powered tools. So it's really important for me to have this. And obviously the security thing is a big thing. And there is the option for an alternator. If you live in an RV vehicle, you can connect it to an alternator and it'll recharge that way as well. So EcoFlow actually have an app as well, where you can go into your statistics of what's drawing what power, and you can look at your dashboard. I haven't currently got all the batteries plugged in at the moment, but you've got your available times left. You've got your input here where you can control your solar inputs, and you've also got your output ports, so you can turn on the output ports when you want to using AC or DC power. I guess you can view it remotely as well at your home. If you're away from your off-grid shelter or cabin, you can review it, have a look remotely at what is drawing what power when the sun's out and things like that. So really useful. Also, just to quickly add, the whole system is based on a 48 volt system, which means there's less heat produced. Again, that makes it more efficient and also safer. With the interior setup now finished, it was on to the last stage of the power system setup, and that was the solar panels. Each rigid solar panel is 100 watts. They are slim, lightweight, and come with mounting brackets and pre-drilled holes for multiple setups. Before I get them on the roof though, I need to clear off any debris. As you can see, I have a fair amount of surface area up here for solar panels. So you can see where the sunlight's dappled at the moment, and that's because it's just there. Obviously winter, no leaves on the trees, it's blasting down on the cabin. This is why I wanted 3 of those batteries. But essentially where the sun does come from, it rises from about over there, comes all the way up and sets round about over there. Different in winter obviously. But I've got a lovely flat area to put solar panels on, and this is why I wanted to make this shelter with just a flat roof, because it makes it nice and easy to install the solar panels. And I might down the line make a little lifting frame that lifts it to track the sun a bit more, but for now I don't need that. I just need this to be clean of debris. There's not many leaves here and stuff, so I've got to sweep it all up, and then I'll get a couple of solar panels up and we'll just test that they work. Okay, so I've got the solar panels up here on the roof. Each panel is 100 watts. I'll put the detailed specifications of the whole kit in the description below for those of you that are interested in the actual specs and things like that. But essentially it's a really simple plug and play job. So each solar panel has a positive and a negative, and it's even labelled for dummies like me. And what you can do is you can actually daisy chain them together and then run them into the power unit via one cable like this. So what happens is you've got these parallel cables which have, it's like a splitter, and so this one parallel cable here can connect 2 panels. So if I have that and another one for those 2 panels, that will then lead me 2 cables coming out, which will plug into the longer cable here, which is about 6 meters or so. It's certainly quite a length, it's enough length. And then this end will go into the power unit itself. It's really, really simple plug and play. And it's just so obvious what to put where, because it's really well labelled. So those are now daisy chained together, and these can basically plug into the main long cable which goes into the power unit itself. Positive to negative, positive there to negative, and it's even labelled for you. Even on the black clips there's a negative there and there's a positive here. Eventually I'll pin this all the way along to the power unit, but for now I'm just going to test that it works. There we go. No wattage yet because there is no sun out, but if you look at solar 2 here, you can see there's some numbers. Solar 1 is the other two panels I haven't plugged in. Again, the sun's not out, so it's not drawing anything yet, but there is power there. You can see 13.95 volts, 0.73 amp, even though the sun is not properly out. But that'd be interesting. So there's something coming in, which is good. Just a quick note to add. The solar input rate is improved after connecting the panels in series instead of parallel like I did, and also if you update to the latest firmware. However, the solar input is still limited due to the cloudy weather and the leaves. For those of you who have a strong need for power in a short period of time, then you could always add the EcoFlow smart generator to get you that power on the cloudy days. So you can see behind me, I've just put a little wall light up. It just runs via an AC plug. There's one AC outlet on the power unit there. I'm just going to plug it in and hope that it works. Yay! We have power from that one plug at least. It's good to know. It's drawing about 18 watts and we have light. This isn't the light I'm going to be using. I'm probably going to have another one. I'm not going to have the lights via this AC outlet. I'm going to have another one over there probably, and one here just for light so I can get some work done in here. Lights will run off the fuse box and then I can use this socket for things like charging camera batteries and things, and camera lights when I'm filming out in the dark in the woods out there. I can charge things up. Now that I know the panels work when the cables are plugged in, I can get to work on fixing them to the roof itself, so that they stay secure in any strong winds. For this, I'm using two long strips of wood which span the entire width of the cabin. At the end of these pieces of wood, I installed some L brackets. These will be what I use to secure the wood mount to the cabin itself. I don't want to be drilling the wood directly onto the top of the cabin roof, but the side of the roof has eaves, so it's safer to secure into these to reduce the chance of the roof getting any leaks. On the underside of the wood, I'm using some dense foam which I cut off of the EcoFlow packaging that came with the batteries. I secured these to the wood with some screws so that they wouldn't spin out. So I've now fixed the 4 solar panels, rigid solar panels to the roof. These are 100 watt each, so there's 400 watts here. But I also have, I think 3 or 4 other solar panels, as well as a 400 watt solar panel. So essentially I've got the potential to have about 800 watts just up here on the roof. But at the moment I don't want to put too much more weight on the roof as it is. I just want to see how it goes with these 4. The sun has actually just gone round the corner now, so it was shining a minute ago. Came to get out the camera, it's dappled lighting, and the clouds came over, and then I couldn't get the shot of the sun going onto the panels. But what I'll do is, in an episode down the line, on a sunny day, probably when the leaves are a bit more off the trees, I'll see what input I can get from these panels. But essentially, if I get full sunlight for minimum 5 hours, but at least sort of 6-7 hours a day on all those panels, it should charge those, at least one of those batteries, fully charge it in one day. So essentially, if I have a week, or if I have about 3 or 4 days of solid sunshine, it will charge up all those 3 batteries. That's with direct sunlight, without the the breakage in the cloud and things like that. This is essentially like a backup as well, because I can detach each battery, take it home to charge it and bring it back out. So for me, I just wanted these, I don't want to lift them up or raise them up at the moment. I'm just happy with these to be flat, low profile. It kind of suits the structure. This is why I went with a flat roof structure as well, because it just suits it. And I've raised it up on some wood and then put some foam, secured some foam underneath that wood. And the reason being is because for the solar panels to have the best efficiency, they need lots of airflow. And so by raising it up, even though they're raised up slightly on the brackets, by raising up a bit more, I get plenty of airflow, and it just makes them much more efficient in the hotter months. That's the same with pretty much all solar panels on houses and things like that. The other reason is this. If I were to have the panels directly on this roof felt here, a couple of things would happen. Obviously, these screws are going to pierce the felt all the way along, and there's going to be more chance of it leaking. So I don't want anything going through the top of the roof up here, because there's going to increase a chance of a leak going into the roof. And then secondly, you'll see there's a nice air gap there now, along there. 2 air gaps really. The second reason is, if it rains and when all the rain hits here, it's going to run towards the back, and I have a rain gutter down the back there. Obviously, if this wood was flat here, then that rain's just going to build up and puddle, increase the chance of a leak, and I'm not going to get any rain in my water butt down at the bottom. So if I show you, there's the gutter, and now the water can clearly run down all the way to the corner and into the water butt over there. So I can still collect water to put out campfires and help fill up the various water feeding stations I've got in the woods for the animals in the hotter months. I can still collect that, and at the same time there's airflow under these panels. I put the foam under there. It's really hard foam. It's actually the packaging foam from the EcoFlow batteries and the Powerkit. It's just really dense. It can't really compress much more at all, so I'm not worried about it getting any bounce with the wind, and it pulling the screws out, because it's so dense, the foam, that I don't think it's going to be an issue. And that just protects the roof with the wood on it. The wood will eventually rot if it's sat on the roof, so lifting it up, more airflow, less chance of it rotting. But it's an eco-friendly shelter. That's the way I like to think of it. It's blends in with the woodland. I've used the ash up the sides, the cladding. I've tried to use as much material from the woodland as possible, but at the same time I do need to have power. And that's pretty much the full setup. I need to do some cable management and just get these all a little bit more tidy, because they're kind of messy at the moment where I've just installed it. And also the batteries down here, I'm going to box those in. Might even box in some of this, just because there's lots of kind of electrics. It seems really overkill, and I know some of you are going to be thinking, why would you need all of that for just such a small shelter? But the idea is that it's that renewable energy, and because I've got the fuse box, it allows me to have the lights, a couple of lights in here which I can wire into here, which then frees up space in this unit to then charge up my camera batteries and my tools. I could even hardwire one of my tool chargers in here, have it in here, so that I can constantly charge up the battery tools. And also security. As you guys know, in I think it was the previous episode, the little pallet cabin that I built with Dad was broken into. Not in this woodland, it's quite a bit away from this one, and it's in more of a kind of populated area than this one. And it just got me thinking that I need to also think about my security, and that if I'm storing tools and things like that in here, I need to be keeping them safe. And at the same time, I need to be able to protect mine and my family's security for when we're here, and if anything happens, then I'd like to be able to, basically I'm going to have a camera that will be, maybe 2 cameras that will be basically hardwired at some point, and I'll have that on a live feed that will be able to come directly to me, my phone, that I can get a ping notification and it will start recording and sending to the cloud, basically to my phone, recording instantly, so that I can then access that, for security reasons. Because as I've gone through the YouTube journey and I've got bigger, my safety has been more and more of a priority, because, there's some weird people out there, and, I have over 2 million followers now, and I need to be a little bit more aware of my safety, my privacy and things like that. So that is another reason why I wanted something that's a little bit more permanent in terms of being able to record the security of it all. And that's why I chose EcoFlow in this setup. So I'd like to say a big thank you to EcoFlow for sponsoring the episode, and for sending me this. I did really appreciate it. So far, I'm really pleased with it. Down the line, we'll see how it goes in terms of the solar panels and charging it and everything like that. And when I've set up the lights and wired them in properly. But I'm really happy with how easy it is, because I'm not an electrician. I know very little about kind of wiring and things like that. So for me to be able to have a solar panel set up without the complicated cables, and then just a few batteries, a power unit, and literally plug and play, it's so much easier. Thank you to EcoFlow for sponsoring this episode. If you're interested in getting to know more about this off-grid power solution, then head to the link in the description to visit EcoFlow's green energy solutions. Cheers for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.